Adam Steen, Republican candidate for Iowa's governor. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Dana, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
So we're talking about your campaign for governor. Start off by just telling me how the campaign trail's been going.
Yeah, the campaign trail is going extremely well. I jumped into the race 8 months ago, really, August 19th. I resigned the position that I was in with the Reynolds administration, jumped into the race, and it has been an awesome and crazy and fun last 8 months on the campaign trail, and it is going extremely well right now.
And former director of the Department of Administrative Services, what made you want to take that jump and leave that job to run for governor?
Yeah, I say this, I resigned a job that I loved to protect a state that I love. Iowa has a ton of things to celebrate, a ton of things to promote, and when the governor announced that she wasn't going to run again, she had her cabinet with her. And when we all kind of picked ourselves up off the floor because we were surprised she wasn't going to run again, I talked to my wife, I talked to several friends and family members, and we decided it was the right thing to do, to resign that position and jump into the race, primarily because I'm custom fit for the role of governor of the state, and really I've got the opportunity to protect the state that I love, and so we're all in.
And you're saying custom fit for this role. How would your experience with the Department of Administrative Services be useful and help you if you're elected governor?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold. So I was 18 years as a business owner. So I've been an entrepreneur for 18 years, and the governor recruited me into her cabinet, and for 5 years I ran the operations of the state. And so I got to see the ins and outs of how government operates, the ins and outs of how our tax dollars flow into state government and flow out as services that need to be stewarded well. And so I've had a direct line of sight into how the state operates. I've had a direct purview into working with the legislature, and my business background combined with my operational background puts me in just a great spot to take over leadership of the state as the governor.
I want to ask you, talk about not being, a politician, a lifelong politician. Why do you feel like that is important to point out whenever you are on the campaign trail?
Yeah, so I've got nothing against politicians, but as a former business owner and someone who's worked on the fringe of government, and then somebody who's worked on the inside of government, what I see oftentimes are politicians not listening to boots on the ground, not listening to business owners, not listening to communities, and their words are political. They're not realistic. They're not factual. And so when you take a business approach, when you take a common sense business approach to situations, it changes the game, it changes the landscape, and you can actually get things done. And so I became known as the fixer inside of state government because I took a project management approach to challenges and problems, and we got a lot of projects done that the state hadn't been able to get done for years. And I owe that to largely my team, but then also being able to take a business approach to government operations.
How would you assure that you would stick with that business approach and really emphasize that boots on the ground approach if you are elected governor?
Yeah, a lot of that approach relies on me bringing the right people to the table. My leadership style is, and I say this, and I probably shouldn't, but I'm not a politician, so I will. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, and I'm willing to admit that. I need people at the table who know more than I do so that we can make decisions together that are going to impact the taxpayer in a positive way. And so my leadership style, my leadership approach is to bring people to the table that we can make common sense, Iowa first, people first decisions that are going to benefit the taxpayer of Iowa.
You've been pretty outspoken recently about ESAs and your plans for ESAs and opening that to Iowans who are homeschooled as well. Why did you feel it was important to speak out on that?
Yeah, so the ESA program in general is one of the best pieces of legislation we've done as a state. It's given parents the opportunity to choose where they're going to send their kids to school. I'm not anti-public school. I want to be very clear on that. My two boys go to public school. We love our teachers. What we don't love are the requirements and the standards that are being forced upon teachers that don't allow teachers to teach the kids the way that they know how to be taught. And there is a Republican candidate in the race, Congressman Feenstra, that has come out and said that the government needs to encroach in parents' decisions on and schools' decisions on whether or not they should or could accept certain students into their schools. And I think that's outrageous and egregious. And we need to understand that parents deserve the right to send their kids where they want to go, to a private, to an independent school, or a public school. And the private and independent schools deserve the right to choose how they're going to run their schools without the government encroaching into their business model and into their curriculum.
Education is a topic that Governor Reynolds has, done a lot of work on in her time as governor. Is that something you would want to continue to address if you're elected governor? And what would be some of the new, reforms, changes, emphasis on education that you would bring?
Absolutely. We have developed a wonderful pathway for education here in the state of Iowa. But one area that I would go immediately as governor of the state of Iowa is offering 2 different tracks of education within public schools. So from an administrator perspective, some will say, well, we need to put standards and requirements on the independents and the private schools that force them on the same Common Core standards that we're on. Well, that flies in the face of why you have school choice and why you have the freedom to choose where you're going to send your kids to be educated. I want to offer a track of classical education in the public schools. That's phonic-based. It's critical thinking. Mississippi has done that. They were 48th in the nation in education. They went to a classical education structure. They changed the culture in their schools. Parents show up on test day and cheer for their kids as they're walking in to take a test. It's changed the culture. They've changed the curriculum. And now Mississippi is 6th in the nation in education. Iowa has the opportunity to offer that same classical education in our public schools so that kids can be taught the way they're going to learn. Again, phonic-based, critical thinking, get physical books out so that our kids are able to get the education they deserve.
And then I want to move on to a few issues that, there have been polls saying voters, are closely watching water quality and the state's rising cancer rate. So I want to kind of hear about your stance on both these issues and your plans for that. So I guess let's start with water quality. What would you do to address Iowa's water quality? Is it something that, you would want to add more funding to, or what would that kind of look like if elected governor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I usually equate water quality and cancer rates in the same conversation. My father, who I was in business with for 7 years, he was my mentor, my hero. He passed away of cancer 3.5 years ago. My mother just survived breast cancer. Neither of those were genetic. It was something environmental. So the cancer issue is near and dear to my heart. And as governor, we will get to the bottom of what the issues actually are. But I'm a fact-based decision maker. So what I do is I go out and I research and I bring people to the table who have been researching cancer rates, who have been researching water quality for a career. And I will create an enterprise within state government that is going to start with independent research so that we can get the facts on water quality, we can get the facts on cancer rates, and we can develop solutions downstream that will stop the cancer problem in its tracks.
Would you invest more money than what is being invested right now?
Absolutely. If you look at, so I was on a call with the Iowa Cancer Consortium about a week and a half ago, and the investment that the state of Iowa is putting into cancer research and cancer prevention is far below what other states are doing as well. We're not the only state that has cancer challenges, but we do need to look at how to invest more dollars into research specifically for prevention, and then also specifically for advocacy in lifestyle, because a lot of our lifestyle choices will determine if we get cancer as well. So we got to look at prevention, but we got to advocate for a healthier lifestyle here in the state of Iowa.
What would that healthier lifestyle look like from your perspective? I know we've seen, proposals for the tobacco tax rate to be higher. What would that look like for you?
Yeah, well, if you look at Iowa's lung cancer rates, we're #1 in lung cancer, and lung cancer is directly connected to smoking. We know that smoking causes cancer, so we need to promote and advocate. You got to stop smoking. You got to keep that out of your lungs so you don't develop cancer. We drink too much. Drinking has been known to lead to cancer. We have radon here in the state of Iowa. We need to be outside. We need to be exercising. We need less stress. We need more sleep. We need to change our lifestyle. And I'm never a fan of adding tax to anything. I'm never a fan of the government encroaching into our lives in any area. But we need to come together as a community and work on a healthier lifestyle together so that, again, we can stop cancer in its tracks. We can do that.
Let's talk about a topic that is really relevant right now, the legislature debating property taxes, kind of going back and forth. We've seen a lot of different proposals. if elected governor, what are some of your priorities for addressing property taxes, and how would you kind of push what's going on right now across the finish line if you're governor?
We need real property tax reform. Iowans deserve property tax relief. And I read a headline of an article that said property tax reform is the #1 issue of this legislative session. And the date on that article was 1996. So this is a decades-old challenge that we're facing. Having been inside of state government, having seen how the government spends money, having seen how counties, cities, schools spend money, we have a spending problem in government. And so while I'm watching the legislature attempt to create real property tax reform, what I will do on day one as governor of Iowa is attack government spending. We need to lower property tax. We need property tax relief, but we need to hit the spending in this state. And what I'm advocating for, not just in the executive branch, but in political subdivisions in schools, is zero-based budgeting. We shouldn't be allowed just to take the same government budget from last year, plug it in this year, and plus it up a couple points for cost of living. We need transparency, accountability, and line item zero-based budgeting so that we can attack the spend, find waste, eliminate the waste, and then we can start to lower taxes.
Is there a proposal out there right now that you align most with, or is it something you would be doing completely different?
I would be doing something completely different, yeah. The zero-based budgeting spending approach is something that I'm not seeing, and we're going to hit that very, very hard on day one.
I want to talk about another topic that's been brought up in the legislature. I think it's been about 3 legislative sessions now, at least, is eminent domain for carbon capture pipelines. What would your plans be for that legislation, considering it is something where we have seen a lot of back and forth and a pretty strong divide?
Absolutely, there's a strong divide, and I would argue that the eminent domain issue for carbon sequestration is the biggest issue right now in the state of Iowa. Having talked to Iowans all across the state, having been on farm with farmers that will show me where these easements would go through their land that would block their ability to build a home between their machine shed. And so where I am at on the eminent domain carbon sequestration issue is I would love to see a piece of legislation hit my desk that had one line in it that said eminent domain cannot be used for carbon sequestration. Now, I am a free market capitalist. I'm free enterprise. I think the free market should reign. I'm willing to have conversations on expanding the corridor, looking at the time constraints on negotiations for the easements. But at the end of the day, any piece of legislation that hits my desk that I will sign has to have a line that says eminent domain cannot be used for carbon sequestration.
So you would sign legislation with that line plus more
Yes.
to the bill? Okay,
Yeah.
if you were to work with everybody?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And that kind of brings me into my next question. You were talking about what you've been hearing on the campaign trail, specifically on that topic. But tell me a little bit more about what you're hearing from Iowa voters, and how does that really apply to your campaign?
Yeah, we did a press conference about a week ago, and what we talked about were a couple things that I will also do day one. Right now, there is pornography that is available to kids all across the state of Iowa. One of the things that I jumped in this race to do is preserve and protect the culture of Iowa, and that means to protect families. That means to protect children, and we need common sense legislation that eliminates children from having direct access to pornography, either through our schools, our libraries, and online. We need common sense legislation to prevent that. That's something that's near and dear to my heart. We had a situation at a school when my son was in preschool where a teacher was going to read a book about a boy who wanted to be a girl, and he's wearing dresses, and at the end he felt alive. Those types of books should not be read to preschoolers. Those kids, it's a developmental issue. You can call it a faith issue, but it's as much of a developmental issue as anything. We have to protect our families. We have to protect our children. And the other one that we mentioned in the press conference, Sharia law. Right now, Sharia law is creeping into communities across the country, and I will not let Sharia law get a foothold in the state of Iowa. There's absolutely no way. We are America. We are founded on American principles, American values, and right now I am seeing and we are hearing all around the state of Iowa Sharia law taking over some of our governmental entities in different states, and I will not let that happen here in Iowa.
What is something about you that Iowans don't know and you think they need to know about?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. Well, I could talk about, I was a professional baseball player just for a brief moment in time, but I'd rather talk about my family. My wife, Casey, is just an absolute rock and a force within the family. She's a secret weapon of our campaign. She's the chair of the board at Unity Point Health, the former chair of John Stoddard Cancer here in Des Moines. She's an attorney. She's kind of a fake farmer. We have a little hobby farm at our acreage. We got chickens and goats and a peacock for some reason. And she just goes out and we're out hunting for mushrooms and we're fishing. We're getting the boys outside. Maverick, my 8-year-old, is a phenomenal little baseball player, so we're having fun watching him play. And my 10-year-old was diagnosed with a disorder that doctor said he wouldn't walk or talk. And through prayer and therapy, he's walking and talking. And he's on the same baseball field as my 8-year-old during Little League games. So he's a walking, talking miracle. And Maverick, his little brother, is the best possible little brother. But we have a family of faith. We have a family of hope. We have a family of grit and determination. And when we face challenges, we take them head on. And as governor of Iowa, when I face challenges, I will take them head on, just like I do with our family.
You're in a crowded Republican primary. What sets you apart?
Yeah, I am a fascinating combination of faith, business, and government operations. I am custom fit for the role of governor. I have a strong faith background. I'm a credentialed minister in the Assemblies of God Network. I've got an 18-year private sector career and a 5-year government operational career. And it's the first time in a long time that there's been a candidate on the Republican side that can bring the faith community together with the business community and also bring the political community along as well. And so I'm custom fit for the role, and I'm ready to lead on day one.
And you're up against, I want to talk about one specific candidate, Congressman Feenstra. He has a lot of name recognition in the state. So how do you plan to navigate that as we head into, the final month before the primaries, going up against somebody who has that name recognition?
Absolutely.
And has, kind of shown as a front runner in the primary race?
Yeah. So name recognition is an interesting thing. And we knew jumping into the race that because he's a sitting congressman, he would have more name ID than myself. So we hit the grassroots hard. We spent 8 months traveling the state, hitting all the counties, hitting the businesses, having conversations with every single central committee that we could. And we watched him sit in his basement and not have those same conversations. And so you can't just run on name ID alone, because if you look at the history of who we elect as governors in the state of Iowa, we don't elect congressmen as Republican governors in the state of Iowa. To my knowledge, there's never been a Republican congressman elected governor in the state of Iowa. So you can't run on name ID alone. You have to run on the ability to connect with Iowans, to understand the issues, and have real common sense solutions that's going to benefit the state, protect our families, and grow the future of the state of Iowa.
And what does this final month and a half, give or take, look like for you?
Yeah, 8 meetings a day, having conversations every chance we get. No, we're hitting it hard. I think we've got maybe 38 days, not that I'm counting, until June 2nd. And we're doing everything we can in this final sprint to touch areas that we haven't touched, to have conversations with people. And we'll be hitting the airwaves as well with commercials to bolster that name ID. And I look forward to June 2nd. I look forward to being the next governor of the state of Iowa.
Anything else you want to talk about that I didn't ask about?
This was great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Dana, thank you.